It's not.
At the garage you use the black pump. Diesel.
No idea. So, we're going to miss the flight, but sun holidays are overrated. All that sun and sand, who needs it, eh?
Where do you use the black pump? Diesel.
No idea. So, I'll call Allianz Breakdown Assistance.
With Allianz Car Insurance, you can also add breakdown assistance. Save 15% when you get a quote online at allianz.ie. You write it, we underwrite it. Allianz. Allianz plc is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Standard acceptance criteria, policy conditions and a minimum premium apply. Breakdown assistance is an optional extra and an additional premium applies.
Calling all proper fans. The TG Cahir All-Ireland Ladies Football Finals take place this Sunday at Croke Park. Antrim play Fermanagh in the TG Cahir Junior Final at 11:45. Laois take on Wexford in the TG Cahir Intermediate Final at 1:45. And Kerrymead Holders Meath in the TG Cahir Senior Final at 4 p.m. Tickets are priced at €25 for adults, €10 for students and senior citizens, and €5 for the under-18s. Tickets are available now on ticketmaster.ie by emailing tickets at lgfa.ie for group bookings or via usual GA outlets. Bílinn, I Borca Chrócaig.
On 106 to 108 FM, on the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud and smart speakers. This is News Talk.
Good evening, I'm Aidan Delaney. In some breaking news this evening, the original First Minister of Northern Ireland and architect of the Good Friday Agreement, David Trimble, has died at the age of 77. The Nobel Peace Prize winner was a former leader of the Ulster Unionist Party and served as First Minister from 1998 to 2002. A statement from his family says the former MP for the Upper Bann area passed away earlier today following a short illness. Mr Trimble and John Hume of the SDLP were the main movers behind bringing peace to Northern Ireland in the 1990s. The sentence hearing of a Garda who coercively controlled a woman he met online will resume tomorrow afternoon. When they first started dating, the man, who can't be named at this point, used his position as a Garda to get information about her from a mutual friend. Our courts correspondent Frank Graney has this report, which some listeners may find distressing.
For 3.5 years, the court heard the man bombarded the woman with over 30,000 messages, WhatsApps, videos, photos and voice notes. He also went through her social media accounts and demanded to know who her male Facebook friends were. She described him as charming and very funny in the early stages of their relationship, but she said that didn't last very long, and she later realised the man she fell in love with didn't exist. Aside from sending her violent, abusive messages, he also tried to isolate her from her friends and family by using his status as a Garda to intimidate. In fact, the abuse only came to light when he made a complaint to colleagues against a relative of hers, and they ended up investigating the abusive messages. The woman told the court she was up against a monster who was trying to hurt and destroy her life. His sentence hearing will resume tomorrow. Frank Graney at Dublin Circuit Criminal Court.
The government is considering significant changes to the way job seekers' benefit is paid. Proposals could see people who lose their job paid a percentage of their previous salary. It would replace the current system where everyone goes into the same rate of €208 a week. And that's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. A birthday gift she'll love? Ryanair gift cards. The perfect gift for lovers.
Mainly dry tonight with a mix of cloud and clear spells, along with the chance of the odd shower in the north. Lowest temperatures of 7 to 10 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Chance to win big. News Talk's Summer Cash Machine.
So more winning in Kerry actually, because today Shona Moriarty was woken up by Barry's call. Thankfully she had the number written down and won the money, so she's our 8th winner from Kerry this year. Only Dublin's had more winners. It means the cash machine has been reloaded and the new number is €12,151 and 41 cents. So to get involved, text play to 57557. Be sure to get your answer in by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And if your phone rings, answer within 5 rings and give the exact amount again, which is €12,151 and 41 cents. Over 18s only, text cost €2.50. You're playing across the Go Loud network of stations. Terms and conditions are on newstalk.com.
Gaelic football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
You're very welcome back. We're continuing with the GAA. Liam Hayes with us in the last hour, but we're turning our attention now to Kerry 20 points, Galway 16. It is All-Ireland number 38 for Kerry, their first since 2014. So in Kerry terms, that is a famine. Fourth for Jack O'Connor in his third stint in charge, an extraordinary record increasingly, Jack O'Connor. Very happy to say Colm Boyle, a four-time All-Star with Mayo, and Enda McGinley, who has 3 All-Irelands with Kerry, are going to join us to talk about the game and the ramifications for the years ahead. But first, Jack O'Connor himself, he was on OTB AM this morning with Ger and Nathan from the Team Hotel. Lots of interviews from the Team Hotel if you want to go online and watch them back or listen to them on the OTB Sports app. And the lads were lucky to get a few minutes with Jack O'Connor. We're just going to play you some of that now because he gives, I think, despite not, sharing everything as is Jack O'Connor's want, you get a great insight into his thinking on the game yesterday and also on his year with Kerry going back to the league campaign as well. So here's a fair portion of the interview this morning with Jack O'Connor on OTB AM with Ger and Nathan.
I'm delighted to say we've got Jack O'Connor with us. Jack, good morning to you. How are you?
Well, I was often healthier, but I'm feeling happy. How are you?
Tell us a little bit about the feeling in the immediate aftermath, because you talked a good bit about the pressure that the team were under. So is it relief? Is it joy? How does it compare?
It's a mixture of everything, really. To be honest with you, this team have been under pressure, and I think that possibly showed, particularly in the first half yesterday. I think we just were a bit unsettled and snatching at chances and that. I mean, we kicked 6 or 7 wides before Galway had a wide. And I think that was the story of the first half. We were happy enough that in general play we were doing well, but we certainly weren't composed enough up front. So it was a case of just getting them into the dressing room and settling things down. And I think they showed that we kicked 13 points in the second half, which is good going.
You said in the post-match press conference there was a few yahoos in the halftime team talk. What did you say?
No, we won't be going into that now. Look, sometimes, we're normally fairly composed in the dressing room, and, there's never any loud talking or shouting or anything like that. But I felt that the boys were a bit lethargic yesterday. Maybe, you don't use that kind of a tactic very often, but sometimes it's needed, that fellas just need to just go at the game. I thought there was a way more in us, and look, that showed in the second half that because Galway didn't go away. We needed to play very, very well in the second half to win that game, because Galway just kept at it, and they went 2 points up. We pegged them back. They'll go back up again, and look, off the top of my head, there was nothing in that game until the last 5 minutes when we got a couple of scores to pull away. Yeah,
the intensity of your play in the last 5-6 minutes was at a higher level than Galway's, and there was probably a few goal chances for you as well. So that was the team being calm in the clutch moments. What do you put that down to?
Look, the team, this group of lads are maturing. I mean, there's been, as I said to you earlier, there's been a lot of near misses over the last few years, and over the years, and particularly this year, I think that they proved that they could win tight games. I mean, the Dublin game was a big landmark moment for this group, really and truly. And when push came to shove yesterday, we had that to fall back on. That was a game that we could very easily have lost. And I mean, it did take a remarkable kick at the end to win it, but it was the way that we hung in there when the game was going against us in the second half against Dublin, with all the momentum and the wind behind them and the hill behind them. That was a defining moment for the group, I feel.
Because it's funny, people talk about experience and how Kerry were more experienced than Galway, but some of that experience was actually losing big games. An All-Ireland final replay, an All-Ireland final against the Dubs in 19 as well, where that could have been something that was more traumatic, and that's potentially why the semi-final was so important, because that was the exorcism of some of those ghosts, was it?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I mean, my last All-Ireland final was 11 years ago in 2011, and we lost an agonising. We had suffered an agonising defeat that day. Stephen Cluxton's famous free. That was a very, very tough one. Did we learn from it? I tell you something. The one thing you learn is that it doesn't go away from you. Those games that you lose like that, they stay with you. They stay with you in a way that the wins don't even stay with you. So if you can't learn from that kind of stuff, you'll never learn.
And so therefore, this team, when you say they're maturing, their game management is maturing, their understanding of how to win games and what's required, particularly down the stretch, is maturing. How do you work on that? What over the course of the year, when did you feel that was happening?
Well, I think the league is a very important competition now. Anybody anybody who has ambitions of winning the championship needs to, be road tested in the league, and the league in many ways is a simulator for the championship. And we had some great results and some tough games this year in the league. We had a game down in Tralee in the month of February where we beat Mayo by a point on a very bad night with a huge crowd in Aston Park. I think there was maybe 10 or 12,000 there. That was a game that I felt we could refer back to many times afterwards, and we had a tough game over in Armagh. We won a tight game there. We won a couple of more tight games, and all that feeds into the confidence and the belief that when push comes to shove, you find a way. And that's what we did against Dublin and again yesterday.
One last thing, can you talk to us a little bit about the influence of Paddy Talley on the game plan and how that evolved over the course of the year?
Look, Paddy is a top class coach, and he's we've had great fun this year. Maybe Paddy does things a little bit different to the way we do things down in Kerry, but the balance we got in the management, I think, was very important and crucial. I mean, Mike and Diarmuid are great brains for the game as well, and we all contributed to coaching, but Paddy was just a little bit different. I think he just brought the balance to the coaching ticket that we needed.
Because the defensive record is sensational. 1 goal in championship conceded, and an absolute worldie from Cormac Costello to score that.
Yeah, and I just said after the game yesterday to the written press that anytime Kerry don't concede goals, you have a chance, because we do have forwards that can kick points. And I mean, 20 points will win you a lot of games once you don't concede a goal or two, and that was the same story yesterday.
There you are, Jack O'Connor on OTB AM this morning, speaking to Ger and Nathan. Very happy to say we have Colm Boyle, 4 times an All-Star, with us. Evening, Colm.
Evening, Joe. How are you?
Very well. And Enda McGinley, who has 3 All-Irelands to his name, with us as well. Hey, Enda.
Evening.
Loads of interesting insights, I thought, in that interview from Jack O'Connor. Colm, a real insight into his thinking. And, I suspect you've both had this experience where there are certain moments along the way in a team's development where you all collectively look back and think, yeah, that was where we took another stride forward. And he's mentioning league games against Mayo and the wet and the wind and a big win against Armagh, almost like a reservoir that they can refer back to, and it fuels belief. And he has imbued this team with a certain steel, as everybody expected at the start of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And I was actually in Tralee that night doing TV, and I remember Jack O'Connor's interview after the game, and he was very bullish, and I found it quite surprising how he was after the game. But I think it just showed the determination that was there from his part. He mentioned the league and the focus that they put in it. Now, other managers might say, it's okay for him. He probably knows they're going to win the Munster title, so he can put that extra bit of focus on the league. But the focus on the league was huge. And it was them games, especially against the likes of Mayos, the Dublins, the Armaghs, these teams he really wanted to beat. And I suppose it was to build up that mental resolve and in that competitiveness in the team. And it was really interesting that he mentioned there was obviously something they were referencing as the year went on. And obviously it stood to them in the latter stages of the championship.
I suppose then that was the bigger or biggest question mark hanging over this Kerry team ahead of this year's All-Ireland. And if you're Jack O'Connor, given the nature of Munster and the run through to the final, those league games on a wet February evening against Mayo, they're probably the few occasions where you get to test your mettle a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's against those other teams, and particularly those teams with big reputations when they're coming down the road. And in league, sometimes you get teams just on really hot runs of form. And Dublin were obviously struggling, so it was up to Kerry to really stand up. But every team, whenever a team is sort of creating something, and they had been through the heavy hits, and various players had mentioned it over the years, and a lot of them boys came through 5 minor winning teams that would have all won a couple of those. They would have all seen the team of the noughties win multiple All-Irelands, and obviously growing up in Kerry, there is that expectation all the time. So like any player growing up within that, and then the defeat last year to Tyrone, the way it should have been their game, and they just did not get over the line, and they've had a couple of those near misses. And those question marks suddenly, just as a group of players, people will talk really, really loosely. The public talks really, really loosely and in really poor terms about any team that seems to fall short. And we forget that it's so many things are just a wee matter of luck here or there. Like Peter Keane had that team ready to win All-Ireland last year, and they just fell short. a wee bit of lack of luck on the day as much as anything against Tyrone and a superb Tyrone performance. But they were right there, and yet the talk about them and the criticism is sharp and it goes deep and it is relentless, particularly somewhere down in Kerry. So then, away from the famous lines go away from the lights, so away from the sort of the big games and the things that everybody notices. All the hard work is done, and that is true of those league games. It's just knowing how to win games. It's knowing how to get stuck into games and do the dirty work that has to be done to win games. And just as a team start to know that whatever way a game is going, that you can figure it out and that you will get across the line. And the more they've done that, and it's not coincident. I think the very fact that Jack O'Connor's previous times, he's won the league and he's won the championship. So for a manager, if he hadn't won them previous leagues, maybe he wouldn't have put as much store in it. But he knew going hard for the league and winning a league title, he knew how much that works in terms of his own preparation and how he leads the team and how he talks to the team and the messages he's given to his team. He knows how much that league title is the perfect stepping stone for the assault on Sam.
The other thing which jumped out, Colm, is his comparison of the first half with the second half. So he rightly said 13 points in the second half of an All-Ireland final is, to use his phrase, good going, which it bloody is. I mean, you do 13 and a half and don't concede a goal, you're going to be thereabouts. He said of the first half, this team has been under pressure and that we were therefore a bit snatchy, not composed enough. We were a bit lethargic, and to the written press he said there were a few yahoos at half-time and almost an encouragement to go for the game a bit more and get going. So there was a marked difference between Kerry first half and second half. He put it down to some kind of lethargy or pressure or lack of composure. What was your perspective on Kerry in that first half?
Yeah, I think pressure is just the word, Joe. We spoke about it there. The pressure them guys would have been under coming into this game. Everyone is expecting them to win it. People have been expecting them to win the All-Ireland the last couple of years. They've finally beaten Dublin. They're back in a final. And it comes down to, can they keep their nerve? And in that first half, they looked like the Kerry in the second half against Dublin that was struggling. They were really, really edgy. They were nervous. They were missing shots that you wouldn't associate with, with Kerry forwards missing. And it just looked like there was a confidence building in Galway. And they were so efficient up the other end of the pitch. And I think that actually made Kerry extra edgy in front of goal in the first half, especially. I think they had 15 shots and scored 7. But he references there, once they settled down, that composure, he mentioned the word composure there in his interview, they had that composure straight away when they come out at half-time. I think was crucial for them. The first couple of shots, they hit a goal and second half go over, and things just really start to flow from there.
I wonder tactically though, would he maybe look at it again in hindsight and think it might have been, because knowing that the team has this pressure on it and the nerviness of it, the fact that they went sort of a route one tactic, that obviously felt there was a weakness there in the Galway full backline or goalie in terms of Gleeson and with Clifford in there, and they went route one an awful lot very early, if you know what I mean, and maybe that robs the team of getting hands on the ball and keeping possession, and lots of boys getting touches, safe touches, and moving the ball on and getting everybody into the game. That route one ball, which they went a lot for in the first half, isn't really the typical sort of Kerry style of play. Whenever they really cut loose in the second half, it was really good quality balls played in. It was runners coming in. It was balls into the space out wide and then cutting in. And maybe the half-time talk was as much as sort of we played nothing of ourselves in that first half. Let's get out there and show what we're about. And they were much more the type of Kerry team you were seeing. And sometimes if you spot a weakness in the opposition, you can sort of go after it too early, and maybe they went after it particularly early doors, but that robbed them too of the chance to sort of settle down into the game.
Oh, that's a great point, yeah, really is. I mean, it's funny, Derry criticised for not testing out that Galway keeper full backline. I almost laughed the way Kerry did it. I mean, it was like a parody of itself in the first 20 seconds. Whatever we do here, we're testing out that full backline, Colm.
Yeah, and me and you spoke about it last week, Joe. We were talking about how it might be a cagey start to the game, and I was saying, if Kerry throw in a couple of early balls, it could really unsettle that Galway defence. I think that's a super point by Enda. Might have almost unsettled themselves, even though they did have a certain amount of success winning it. I think they got 3 marks, 2 from Clifford and a point from Gainey. So they did have some degree of success with it. But yeah, it was a throwback, to be honest. I was really enjoying it. Them balls just been fired in, and the sides of the likes of David Clifford going up with one of them marks. It was unbelievable. But yeah, certainly in that second half things did change. They ran the ball a lot more. They were looking for them dink passes to boys out in front, something you would normally associate a lot with Kerry over the years.
So you're still, it's a wee bit of an aside. Maybe we'll get off topic, but it still makes me hit the forward mark all the more whenever I see a ball go in and it's well taken. I want a score from play to finish off a brilliant move rather than sitting and watching a free kick. I just don't know. The forward mark, that was it in all its glory yesterday, and I still couldn't warrant it.
That's interesting, yeah, because yesterday with Clifford soaring in the air, and that's as good as the mark gets.
Absolutely. But how much I would have loved to see him land, push off a man into space, 1 metre space, ping it over. You would have then had a score for the ages that you would watch highlights, like the likes of what Walsh's score whenever the ball got put in, he won it, then went on the turn. Like just those brilliant scores from play. We don't ever look at scores from frees in a highlights reel, bar maybe the likes of Sean O'Shea, but those simple frees, I just don't know. I don't think it adds massively to the game, but as I say, I suppose that's taken away from what was brilliant fetches by Clifford, and that the first one of his was massive. And again, he is a player, he seems to love the battle and really know his role as a leading player and the responsibility that comes with that, and to stand up, take that ball, even the way he put up his hand, it's like, yep, I am in charge today. I thought it was brilliant.
Well, he's a freak. I mean, we're going to run out of superlatives if he keeps doing this for the next 12 to 15 years. And you think Colm at half time, given Kerry's wide count, which was 7, and the way Galway were playing, but for Clifford, that scoreline at half time could have been very scary for Kerry. He contributed 4 points. He had the high mark, he had a free, he then scored from 45 metres in typical Clifford fashion, and then he had another brilliant mark. So you take those 4 points away at half time and it's a very different game. He does seem to have that rare ability to play well when all around him are not playing so well.
Unbelievable, yeah. And look, it's something we never really doubted, but until he, suppose, actually did it in the All-Ireland final, in the heat of the moment, I suppose, and got his team over the line and literally dragged his team over the line, then the question marks are always going to be there. But sensational performance yesterday. And you mentioned the first half there. I think Stephen O'Brien as well in that first half. When the Kerry were kind of struggling, makes 2 huge blocks, one of them on a goal chance from Johnny Heaney that ricochets over the bar. I think that was the only other score that Galway got from a forward on the day. Makes a block on on Paul Conroy and gets a point as well. I think he'd a really big influence. He died in the second half a small bit, but he'd a really big influence in that first half. But Clifford especially, he's battled with Walsh, and I think it's been mentioned already, it's going to be talked about for years. It was sensational. I think what was really interesting about Walsh's scores was how individualised they were. He'd worked so hard for them. It wasn't a case that Colm or Finnerty were winning the ball and he was coming around in the loop for them. He was literally winning the ball, taking on 2 or 3 men and hitting just incredible scores you're probably likely never to see again, or anytime soon, certainly. So there was a contrast in that regards.
Yeah, I feel really sorry for Sean Kelly and Tom O'Sullivan. Both them men all year. I have to say, I've loved watching them. Sean Kelly in particular, I've seen sort of several of his matches and duels. He has been immense this year. Both them boys, if they were man of the match yesterday, they'd probably been in the running for player of the year. They were literally that amazing in terms of defenders, and yet I've seen multiple all-star teams being suggested, and them boys were being left off. So it's and yet Joyce and Jack O'Connor did not move them off because they were their 2 best defenders. They left them on, and so these boys might miss out on the big individual gongs. Not that the individual all-stars particularly matter, but it's just amazing how them 2 boys, having done so much for the team all through the year, were there in the eye of the storm yesterday and just were left to stick at it because they were the best the teams had, but they were just up against 2 forwards that were just on top form. And what about, is that a mistake, fellas? Because look, I appreciate, well, they're our best 2 defenders, so let's just leave them on their best 2 players. But sometimes, styles make fights, and you don't know what attribute another defender has that seems to just cause a Clifford or a Walsh in this case a bit of trouble. And I was sort of thinking to myself, I understand why they're leaving the 2 best players on the 2 best players, but what have you got to lose here by trying someone else just for a moment? I mean, all that's going to happen is you're going to have another Walsh and Clifford score here, so maybe try someone else on the off chance that they have some attribute which causes problems. No?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and I was thinking about it today. Maybe it was just the fact that the other matchups were working so well for the respective teams that they didn't want to change them. For instance, like Foley had Comer taken out of the game. Liam Silk really had Sean O'Shea taken out of the game. So maybe they were afraid if they make a switch that, you know, it could free up Comer or it could free up Sean O'Shea, and you're kind of having the reverse effect from what you want. But yeah, it is interesting. It is really interesting how there wasn't a switch made. But look, it was some spectacle to watch them two boys in action.
What do you think, Enda? Do you think it was a risk of not upsetting the wider ecosystem, which was generally going well for both?
Funny, before Colm said it, that was exactly what I was going to say. The rest of the matchups were so good from both managers' point of view that you'd probably be happy enough. And on the Sean Kelly Clifford one, was there a huge amount that he could have done about a lot of that? Particularly in the first half, I'm not really sure. Tom O'Sullivan, I genuinely think when he re-watches the game, I think he almost gave Walsh a wee bit too much respect. I think he was particularly scared of Walsh's pace and trying to go round him, and he'd given them a couple of metres. And I think he could have been a wee shade tighter. He would usually be a wee shade tighter. So I've got a feeling that he, if he was given a second bite at it, he might do a wee bit better. But I think both Walsh and Clifford are that special, very, very rare type of player that the bigger the stage, they almost seem to recognise it and relish it. And we all got to enjoy that yesterday. Tom O'Sullivan and Sean Kelly got to suffer it. But like, for the work that those two boys have done this year, I don't think anybody will be too critical of them after yesterday. But I just think it's remarkable that they've suddenly fallen off the radar in terms of awards.
What have you done for me lately, lads? You know, it's the brutality of sport. It's funny on Kelly because with a couple of the Clifford marks and television and 2D, and also looking at something from a height has that ability to flatten things out like you wouldn't believe. Because I was looking at Clifford taking these marks and thinking, oh, come on, like, get a fist in with him, or do, like, you got to do more there. But it's funny, I saw a photo taken at ground level of how high Clifford was in the air, and I suddenly had a second thought of, okay, his feet are about 5 to 5.5 feet off the ground in one of the photos, so like he's getting up as well. I thought, well,
yeah,
fair. If it was that easy, Kelly probably would be able to do something about it.
Yeah, and he's already a monster on top of that then, Joe. You know, he probably already has a couple of inches on Sean Kelly. And Enda mentioned it there, could he have done a whole pile more? Like, even that score he gets at the start of the second half off his right foot, Kelly actually gets a hand in, knocks it away from him, and the ball actually falls in Clifford's favour, and he runs onto it and kicks it over the bar off his right foot. Sunday, when it's not your day, it's just not your day, and it definitely wasn't Sean Kelly's day yesterday, unfortunately, or Tom O'Sullivan. And on the point on the pace for Shane Walsh, as a back, and you'll probably know this as well, when you're beaten the first time, you're petrified the next time. You know, you just know, I might just need to sit off a yard here, and that was just falling in Shane Walsh's hands every time, because he probably knew we had him then. He was getting the chance to turn and take him on, and that's all that Shane Walsh needs.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. But look, I've got a funny feeling that Sean Kelly's performance over the next 10 years, Sean Kelly's performance will probably look all right, and that he was probably within touching distance of Clifford. I've got a funny feeling it's going to be the short straw. A lot of good defenders are going to suffer the consequences of.
It was quite stunning, Enda, how confident Shane Walsh was. Like, some of those points he scored and the manner in which he scored them, they were of a, like, the kind of panache of a player who was like Footballer of the Year all year, whereas Walsh was actually coming into this final with a question mark over him in the big games, and it's all about Comer. I couldn't think of a player looking more confident.
Yeah, and yet everybody would say that about Shane, that he is this free spirit. He literally just plays football for the joy of it, and you can see it in the manner of his play. You can see it in his love and complete primacy of the skills over anything else. He just wants to be perfect off left foot and right foot and have all the beautiful skills, and he just wants to play football. He's not a player that would worry too much about critique, and he got plenty of critique after the previous performances, and people talking about a streak player, a player that can be hot and cold, and whenever he takes the notion would be the classic cliche. And well, yesterday he took the notion, and he done it, and I'm delighted for him because I've known him. He's a great lad, and he loves his football, and to see a player like that really stand up and do that on a big day against a player of O'Sullivan's ranking was amazing. But absolutely, the scores, like the first 45 he hit, which that game at the start, and Colm, you've been there, I've been there, All-Ireland finals, like those first 5, 6, 7 minutes, until you get into the game once or twice and maybe take a hit, the level of adrenaline in your system And you seen it with Paddy Clifford in his first contact. It was really fumbly and really, really uncharacteristic of him. But you have so much adrenaline in the system, and even somebody as cool as Shane Walsh, that first 45, it was an ugly 45 in terms of somebody that strikes the ball as well as Shane Walsh. It just about made it over the bar, and yet that wee bit of a difference can be the wee change that suddenly gets a player right. I'm now up and going, and then sure, his second point from underneath, I think it was the one underneath the Hogan stand where he turned in and struck it, and you seen that and you just thought, right, we're away, he's flying. And it was as if from then on you seen Clifford do something amazing, and it was as if the two of them had this wee thing, right, well, if he can do that at that end, I'm damn sure I can do something special at my end. And
that one under the Hogan where he cut between the two defenders, that was frightening. That just jumped out as opposed to early-ish in a game. That was like a guy who's, they're 8 points up and he's had the game of his life and he's able to try anything. It was just phenomenal. And I guess further to Enda's point, Colm, Sean O'Shea kind of snatches at that 45, and like for Sean O'Shea of all people to snatch at that 45, who knows if that sails over calmly what that does to his performance.
That's exactly the point I was going to make, Joe. Yeah, the difference in the two strikes, Sean, he pulls it very unlike him and doesn't really get into the game after that. It's kind of snatching at a couple of balls that come his way, whereas as Walsh, the next time he gets the ball after the 45, he's buzzing. He's absolutely buzzing. I think it definitely suited him playing a bit closer to goal yesterday, and he probably found that he was getting more space than he was getting against the likes of Armagh and the likes of Derry, because Kerry probably weren't getting as much bodies back around that Siltra channel as he'd faced in the previous two games, and he certainly made hay with that space, no doubt about it.
Just before we jump off that Walsh Clifford mini drama that kind of dominated the game, it was just amazing. So like Walsh, this was spectacular, and if he keeps doing that, my God, we'll be talking about a hell of a career. On Clifford, and it already feels as if each year we're talking about now, it's like part of this mythology of the greatest player of all time and the ups and the downs, and it's the latest instalment of it. I mean, it really does feel like you would have seen Canavan and seen some greats, but this really does feel like we're watching something that we've never seen before.
And often it's usually a wee bit later in a career, whenever maybe he's had one or two man of the match performances in big games, like All-Ireland finals and that, and won maybe 2-3 medals and that. Whereas he was almost anointed before yesterday, and then whenever he done it, then it was okay, we are up and running. And we have now, sometimes you only are starting to really laud somebody towards the end of their career. Well, we're all going to have 10 odd years of, and hopefully he stays injury free, but look, he's got all the talents. What I seen him match, I think it was actually Kerry might have been, it was some form of a knockout game up in Clonus against Monaghan, and it ended up a draw, and Clifford had been massive to drag Kerry to get the draw at the end. The draw was an amazing result on the day for Kerry because they looked well out and beaten, and the players were clearing off the pitch, and I was just happened to be watching Clifford, and he was an angry man coming off. He was disgusted. And this was maybe 2-3, this must have been 3 years ago. So he was only a cub, and yet he had that anger, he had that leadership, he had that expectation of the Kerry team. Whenever I seen that, because we all were aware of his talent and everything else from the minor days, whenever I seen that, I thought, okay, he has that, because you mentioned Canavan there, that's what struck anybody playing in alongside or in the dressing rooms with Canavan. The thing that's always you got it full in the face was that massive competitive desire, and you seen it yesterday, and there was that wee bit of a contrast with Walsh too. Clifford was pumped up every ball, he was jumping, there's a wee bit of a showmanship, he's turning to the crowd, but there is anger in everything he does. He is so determined and so competitive, and I think with that, with his, Colm mentioned, his physical size, then his speed, which surprised everybody a few games ago when he just blitzed and people sort of forgot because he plays the game in such a beautiful, sort of relaxed manner. Suddenly realised, right, he's got lightning fast pace. And then, of course, his feet, and we've seen his touching around the goal for such a big man. He's got this amazing sort of close touch. So when we talk about somebody that has it all the skills and athleticism, he has it. But that ingredient, that absolute sort of competitiveness and aggression and that wee bit of dirt that he has in his game, he's a boy that's willing to sort of throw it in. You see these wee cheeky slaps that he sort of gets away with, and he's such a wonderful player. Nobody wants to be annoyed with him at all, but he does it. But all of that makes him the player that potentially, and again, you never know what life brings, but potentially and hopefully we get to see this man, because he's only touching the start of his prime years.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why it feels ludicrous to have these conversations, but the performances almost warrant them, because Colm, again, I can't think of another 22, 23, and he's now 24-year-old who is being talked about not as the best of his generation or several, but as maybe the best we've ever seen. No other early 20-something-year-old player has had to deal with that, and that makes it all the more extraordinary. He's not shying away from it, but as Enda says, it's a weird conversation to have when the vast majority of his career is still in the future.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And you'd have to say Kerry's future success is really dependent on him and his fitness and his form. You know, if David Clifford has a bad year, Kerry don't win the All-Ireland. That's how pivotal he is. And like, it's the calibre of players that both past and present that's talking about this. Like you said, they're not talking about him being the best now. They're talking about him being the best ever at 23 years of age. And, you know, the likes of Colm Cooper are saying this. So it's just outrageous even to think what he's done in the game and what he's going to do. It's a frightening thought.
We're taking a very short break. Enda McGinley and Colm Boyle are staying with us, and we're going to get to some of your texts and talk a little bit more about Kerry Galway. Back in 1 second.
Gaelic football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
Guaranteed Irish business members continue to sustain jobs and communities across Ireland.
Pipelife Eco, Ireland's leading designer and supplier of thousands of renewable heating solutions. Established in 1970, Pipelife Eco is your one-stop shop for complete renewable heating solutions. From market-leading products, free initial advice, through to bespoke design, final commissioning and technical support. To find out more, visit their website www.pipelifeeco.ie. So look out for the G, guaranteedirish.ie. All together better.
There's never been a better time to buy VHI travel insurance for a range of benefits at home or abroad. For peace of mind when you travel, search VHI Multitrip. VHI Healthcare DAC, trading as VHI Healthcare, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland and is tied to Collinson Insurance Europe Limited for VHI Multitrip travel insurance.
East Africa is being ravaged by drought, with someone dying of hunger every 48 seconds. Goal is responding to the crisis by delivering water, food aid and other survival essentials. Please make a life-saving donation today at goal.ie. That's goal.ie. Together we can help families on the brink, because that's what goalies do.
Hey, Finny the Frog here. Join me for an amazing family day out this summer at Aquazone Water Park in the Sport Ireland campus, Blanchardstown. Book now on aquazone.ie.
Hey, what are you doing tomorrow morning at 10:30? Any plans? Well, if you plan on buying a car soon, then you might want to get to Merlin Car Auctions. Every Tuesday and Friday at Merlin, we have over 120 cars to choose from. Viewing starts at 8:30 a.m. and the auction starts at 10:30. Check out the Merlin Car Auctions catalogue, available today from 3 p.m. at merlin.ie.
Gaelic football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
You're welcome back. We have Colm Boyle and Enda McGinley with us. We're picking our way through the All-Ireland football final. Colm, if we jump into a key part of the game, we've talked about Clifford there for obvious reasons and Walsh for obvious reasons. Despite Clifford's brilliance, Galway had absorbed that to the extent that on 47 minutes they were 2 points up. And then they don't score for 17 minutes and the game gets away from them. Where is it for you that Galway just came up short as that game reached its natural conclusion?
I would say there was a couple of things in it, Joe. Possibly they put in a huge effort for the first 15 minutes or so. I think that was maybe akin to tell. We were talking about Shane Walsh there. I think his influence on the game began to wane in the last maybe 20 minutes or so of the game. And maybe bar Killian McDade, who had an unbelievable second half, certainly as a scoring threat and going forward, there wasn't enough other Galway players chipping in on the scoreboard. as is up the other end for Kerry, you had Killian Spillane, Adrian Spillane, Graham O'Sullivan getting up for a score, Gavin White. So there was more, Paddy Clifford obviously, so there was more boys helping out David Clifford in that regards and putting the scores on the board. And they go through that really 15, 16 minute spell. Kerry go 2 up and it looks like the game has gone away from them. And I know we'll probably talk about the free for against John Kelly in a couple of minutes, but they do get a very lucky free themselves, which kind of settles them down. I think Killy McDade gets hit by Gavin White. To me, that's a perfect shoulder. They get a free in, Walsh puts that over the bar, and it just settles them back down again. And they ended up leveling it very quickly again with Killy McDade, and next thing it's 16-all. But I think, look, at when you break it down, I think the benches, and this will be the huge thing for Galway going forward, and we'll probably talk about this after, they just didn't have enough impact from the bench. They didn't have enough boys contributing. When you look at the Kerry side, 3 points coming from the bench. Joe O'Connor's just off the bench and he wins the last free that Sean O'Shea puts over the bar for the insurance score. Galway just didn't have that, and they didn't have enough forwards playing well, and the boys that come in didn't really change things, unfortunately, and that's probably where it starts to fall apart for them. Paul Conroy was getting tired around the middle, you could see that, and they tried him in full forward then before taking him off. So they were beginning to wane in a number of aspects, and Kerry were punishing them on the scoreboard. At the same time, at 16-all, it cost that huge call against John Kelly coming out of the fence for Galway, and it's a very, very tough call I feel against them. It's not a call you see going against the man in possession an awful lot. I think Killian Spillane does leave that hand in long enough for a free to be given for Daly. What I'll say about it is Daly does grab his arm obviously and then kind of breaks away. I think the referee could actually just let them play from there and not give a free either way. I think it's a huge call to give against Daly in that instance, and it really, once Clifford put that over, Kerry never looked back from there.
Okay, loads in that answer. Enda, why don't you pick up on the free against Daly?
Yeah, I suppose there's the standard thing, the common sense refereeing that anybody that played the game, you just sort of automatically look and think, and you think, okay, there might be a free there, you might not. Whenever you looked at that incident, my initial reaction sitting at home was, yeah, that's going to be a free out all day long. I think the Kerry players were expecting it as well. Technically, did Spillane do anything wrong? His arm was in over the shoulder. A lot of the times that seems to be given as a free now, although it's not specifically a free, and he was going for the ball. So I think it was a legitimate tackle. Just did he leave the hand in? He probably did, but again, he wasn't pulling the player down or anything like that there. John Daly, he definitely did grab the arm, and knowing Herson, and even in club football up here in Tyrone, that is something he loves spotting boys really blatantly grabbing an arm and then pulling down, and Daly done that. So it would be something pretty consistent from Herson. Of the two actions, which was more of the free? To be honest, I do think it was Daly's action in the arm wrap pulling down was more of a free. I think Killian Spillane was a fairly legitimate attempt to tackle the ball. He was only high because Daly was so low. So in terms of the technicality of it, I think, to be honest, it was the right call. In terms of that moment, was it a fairly cheap free to give in that moment of the game? Yes. I think it was. I think you expect things to be very, very hard earned at that time, and for that, I think I would have expected a Galway free out, and I don't think anybody would have looked at it twice if it was a Galway free out, other than saying he played for it. But sure, how many frees do we look at knowing when the free is given? Yeah, he played for it, but it was still given. But technically, my call is he got it right. Herson got it right.
As for the benches, which Colm mentioned, Enda, so Kerry used their full complement of 6 substitutions. Galway didn't. They had made 4 substitutions, and it should be said as well that Tierney only came off in the 74th minute. So in effect, Enda, Galway made 3 substitutions.
And that's a pattern we've sort of seen most of the year, where Galway have used their bench less maybe than some other teams, whereas Kerry had that very much that 18, 19 man sort of definite, almost like a first 15, 20, if you know what I mean. And then you've got your 15 starters, and you've got your 5 boys that are pretty much every bit as good as the starters, and they're your finishers, so to speak. Dublin certainly had that model for a number of years, and I think most top teams, that is where you have to be. But you do need a strong and deep squad, and a very experienced squad. Kerry have been to the latter end of the championship multiple years, so Killian Spillane has had big impact in big games before, and that changes the mindset of a player as well. it makes it more difficult from a management point of view of keeping everybody happy. And obviously Jim Gavin faced that challenge for multiple years. Galway are earlier in their development pathway, and I don't think they have that absolute strength and depth as yet. And it was talked of before Sunday's game that Kerry had the stronger bench. And in these games, like these games now last 80 minutes. They're being played in summer. I know Sunday wasn't hot, but it's still you're playing in peak July weather, so it's tough on boys. It's certainly tough on any older lads to last it. And nearly all these games coming down the last 15-20 minutes, every single ball is so massive and so critical. You need almost your best players there on the pitch at the end, and Kerry certainly had a better mix, but it wasn't a lot of them. Like the likes of Paddy Clifford. So Jack O'Connor at half-time could have hauled off Paddy Clifford as much as he could have hauled off Paul Geaney. Paul Geaney was actually getting on the ball well, getting into some great positions, and it just wasn't happening on the shooting end of it. Whereas Paddy Clifford was getting on the ball but was looking very, very fumbly, and it wasn't really getting away at all. But Clifford has obviously hit more high notes during the year and has had a bigger impact and swung it round in second halves, and is that bit younger, I suppose, too, maybe than Geaney. And so he trusted him to keep going the second half, and Paddy Clifford turned it round as much as the Kerry bench. Paddy Clifford was like a new player in that second half for Kerry too. And again, to what Colm was saying, Kerry just had more about them than just David Clifford in that second half, and that was essential. As good as what David Clifford was, it was essential that Paddy Clifford kicked in, that Killian Spillane kicked in, that Gavin White got up and got the point. Those things are critical.
They sure are. And
just on
yes,
that
Colm,
too,
and
I couldn't help but think last night of a couple of Galway players not on the squad at the minute, the likes of Peter Cook, Ian Burke, Micheál Daly, obviously Sean Mulcairn picked up a bad injury at the start of the year. I'm just thinking, even if they two of them out of four of them boys to come on in the last 20 minutes or even start that game yesterday, the difference it would have made, certainly in matching Kerry in the last 15 minutes of the game. You know, that's one thing I'd really be wondering about as a Galway supporter. If them boys were on the squad this year, the difference it could have made in that last 20 minutes in particular.
And are they off it, or might Joyce be on the phone now?
I don't know, to be honest. I think Peter Cook is away with work as far as I know. Ian Burke, I actually met him the day of the Mayo Galway game. He told me he was working in Dublin. And Micheál Daly, I'm not sure what the story was there. I think he was let go off the panel last year for whatever reason. I don't know. But for me, if I'm Park Joyce looking forward, I need to be looking at depth. You're not gonna get there without the depth. They were so close yesterday, but to get over the line, I think that's one area he'll certainly be going after for next year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess the other point, it's been made so often this year, it's easy to just gloss by it in this conversation, but this was a Galway team that scored 11 goals en route to the final, and they don't score a goal against Kerry, and the only goal Kerry conceded was that Cormac Costello bit of genius, and you couldn't really put that down as a defensive lapse. And we had Jack O'Connor there at the start of the conversation saying, look, 20 points, no goals conceded, wins most games, and in Kerry we feel if we don't concede a goal we'll probably win the game. So that's where, again, Enda, you're back to, you know, someone like Graham O'Sullivan doing a good job on Robert Finnerty, and again, if I'd said to you pre-game that Jason Foley's going to keep Comer scoreless, you'd say, well, Galway have no chance here.
Yeah, and going back to that Costello, it was barely a goal chance. Yeah. It was just sheer brilliance. It was barely a goal chance, well outside the penalty box, wide on the 14-yard line. Yeah, absolutely. But you went through Jason Foley, huge game yesterday against Comer. It's nearly I want to rewatch the game again just to watch that off the ball to see what Foley was doing, because he had a huge game. Tom O'Sullivan obviously had a tough game, but has been immense all year. Gavin White going really well. So yeah, Kerry defence, obviously Paddy Talley. There's a lot of talk about Paddy Talley's influence on it, and no doubt he did have a work. But I think also there's that recognition for Kerry that in their attacking threat that they carried, that they could really need so little work on. So many teams have to do so much work to try to get their forward units working well. Whenever you're out and out talent, you don't really need to do a huge amount of work. The recipe is fairly easy. You just get it to Clifford if in doubt. So it allows them to really focus on the defensive work. And my God, they have. But right throughout the league and everything else, they've been priding themselves on that defensive work, and those lads, I would imagine that's a really tight unit. I'd imagine they are taking massive pride in being really horrible to play against as a defence, which isn't something you would have associated with Kerry over the past 10 years. But I think with their defence, and they nailed it this year.
I think it's a collective thing too, and I think the likes of Stephen O'Brien, I've already mentioned him there makes 2 blocks in that first half. Like Stephen O'Brien, to me, defending was never his strong point, but I think it's just the mentality.
You going, Colm? I think Colm might just be going. Might get him back. Yeah,
there is a selfless thing that was mentioned a couple of times in commentary about the very fact Clifford wasn't following Sean Kelly. So Clifford wasn't following, Clifford wasn't being expected. So there is a selflessness to that Kerry team, and again a recognition of his own talent. The David Moran thing, because he wouldn't have massive legs around the middle again. You have a lot of boys doing a lot of selfless work. Stephen O'Brien, obviously, as Colm was mentioning, one of them. Jeremy O'Connor, another, covers huge ground. Sean O'Shea, you seen that with the block early on in the game where he came right back. I thought he on one half, I thought he was played it quite safe yesterday, Sean O'Shea. I would have loved to see him do more, because I think he's obviously a wonderful player too. But he worked so hard for the team at various times yesterday, and again that allows Clifford to save the legs a wee bit and to do the damage at the other end. So there is that selfless nature, but again, that's a team. It's the teams that win the All-Ireland, and Kerry spotted where they had to strengthen. They strengthened there, and they become a much better team because of it.
They sure have. Colm's back with us. I'll ask the last question to you then, Colm. So on the one hand, this is being talked about now as that minor winning golden era for Kerry, which is now come of age, and they'll play even a more unhindered and confident brand of football with an All-Ireland medal in their back pocket. And so there are several more All-Irelands in this team, and you can use the word dominate or not, but regardless, several more All-Irelands in this team. And yet the argument against is no Clifford, not so sure. So give us your sense of this Kerry team over the next 5 years. How many All-Irelands? Will they win 3?
Jeez, that's a big call. That's a big number to say. I don't think they're going to become a runaway train like the Dublin footballers or the current Limerick hurlers. Look, I think you mentioned all the points there that it could go in that direction, but are they a million miles away? Obviously, they have the outstanding player in Clifford and the likes of O'Shea. When you go through the rest of the team, are they a million miles away from what's out there? I'm not 100% sure. I think when things start back up again in 2023, I think there's a lot of teams that know on the big day that they can do a lot of things that can get to this Kerry team. They're obviously going to be a far more confident Kerry team, as you mentioned there. The pressure's obviously off at this stage. The monkey's off their back, and they have an unbelievable manager that's going to be driving them on now to win a back-to-back title. But yeah, could they win a couple of All-Irelands in the next few years? Definitely, but I don't think it's going to be a case that it's that they're going to dominate, win 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. I couldn't see anything like that. But look, they're going to win a couple more because they just have the best player in the country in Clifford, and on his day he's just unmarkable and can almost win it on his own to a certain extent.
Okay, fellas, brilliant stuff. Colm Boyle, thank you. Enda McGinley, thank you. Appreciate it, lads.
Did you?
So the two lads there looking back on the final yesterday. Gaelic football on off the ball is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. You can check out #TheToughest for more.
Kerry were the raging hot favourites, but Kerry have been beaten 2-0 in the final.
Look, the Kerry gig is a fantastic. It's a fantastic job. It's a very challenging job, but like, who doesn't want to coach Man United? You know what I'm saying? There is that lure because of the tradition.
Worst things could have happened than Jack O'Connor going back is my current thought on this whole situation. At the start I was like, no way. Now I'm like, he might actually win an All-Ireland for Kerry.
Sean O'Shea looking to send Kerry past Dublin for the first time since 2011. It's curling! Oh my God! Put it over the bar! What a score! Unbelievable by Sean O'Shea. Talk about courage. Talk about leadership. It's all over! It's all over! Kerry have finally done it.
And what would it mean to you to be able to come back into the fold and take them to win the All-Ireland?
Look, that's the ultimate dream, you know. It's the dream at the start of every year, but you know, we won't be fast forwarding to that now for the next few days.
But tonight, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my peers, putting suckers in fear.
Gavin White on pace, gives it to David Clifford, who's just inside the 45. Left-footed shot from Clifford. Anything Shane Walsh can do, Clifford can do, if not better, certainly equally. That's a cracker of a score. And O'Sullivan up to the Galway 65, goes with the lofted ball down towards the 20-metre line. Clifford comes and takes it and claims the mark inside the tee. What a catch that was from David Clifford. Sean O'Shea kicks it down the wing. It's a really poor ball, but David Clifford somehow manages to turn on it up to the 20 at a tight angle. Has a pop. David Clifford into the hill 16 end, kicks it over. What a score that was from David Clifford. Not just the finish, but the way he won it from such a poor pass.
Yeah, and the narrative of the game really is simple. Shane Walsh and David Clifford, these two guys have lit up Croke Park today, and it all boils down to, you know, how influential they can be for the last 15-20 minutes.
Clifford makes tough look easy. Clifford with that unique style kicks it over with the left. Kerry lead again. Kerry 17, Galway 16, 66-37 on the clock. Kerry with the free. Sean O'Shea to take it. Sean O'Shea outside the 13-metre line, facing the hill 16 end. This one is surely the one that wins it. Sean O'Shea kicks it over. Kerry are the All-Ireland champions for the 38th time. They've beaten Galway 20 points to 16, and the wait is over.
Gaelic football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out hashtag the toughest for more.
The Colm